Okay, good. So yes, we are in a church, and there are a lot of churches in Brazil. I'll try to keep my voice low. Can you all hear me? The reason I brought you this church, because this church is different. Like everything in Brazil was built by the slaves, but this church was built by the slaves for the slaves. I think I mentioned before that the slaves and the native people, they were not Catholics. They had their own religion. But the Europeans felt in order for them to deal with them, even to touch them, they had to be Catholics. So the conversion, right, process started. Of course, for the slaves, it was very hard. They had to give it up their own beliefs and religion to become Catholics, but they had to. It was not a choice. So for the slaves here in this community, and most of the slaves in this area came from Congo, was a little bit easier because the patron in this church is Saint Benedict. According to history, Saint Benedict was an Ethiopian man that was caught in Ethiopia and brought to Italy as a slave. He always wanted to be a doctor. As a slave in Italy, he made a promise, once he became Catholic, that if he became a free man again, he would devote his life to take care of people who did not have money. And that's what happened, okay? So Saint Benedict became free eventually, and he spent the rest of his life helping others. After his death, the Vatican was proven there were some miracles related to his persona. And a simple way to put it, someone becomes a saint when 5 or more extraordinary things happen to them. So and then the Vatican and the Pope revised the whole content of the have, and the person might become a saint. That would happen to Saint Benedict. Okay, so he became a saint. This church was built in the 1600s. When the royal family arrived in Brazil in 1808, the church that was supposed to have their first mass, that was a custom of the royal families, was not working. So they came to this one, and people were outraged the fact that the royal family had their first mass in a black church, in a slave church. So this was a church built by the slaves for the slaves. So the slaves, and there were several of them throughout Brazil. The first one and the most important is in Salvador, which we're going to visit, and this one is the second one. And so the tradition continues. Today, this church is run by black men and black women. Often, the church of the blacks throughout Brazil, the priests are blacks, which is not very common, and they incorporate African elements to the mass, like drummings, some certain type of incense, even dancing. So those black churches in Brazil, they're very different from the other regular churches, okay? So you're welcome to take pictures and also to make questions. So, okay, right. Questions, comments? Yeah, they do. As you know, the churches are falling up. The Catholic Church has a lot of financial problems, so they cannot. They don't have enough money to maintain. This one has been a little, and then in the early mid 20th century, there's a big fire, and then a lot of it was damaged. So they're trying to keep it up, but it's really difficult. And for us, it's very important because this is the only. This is the largest black church in Rio. Okay. Anybody else questions?
So they still do services?
Yes, they do services every day at noon. They have a service, with drumming and some dancing, which is very uncommon for Catholic churches. Anybody else? I don't know if you guys have seen. Anyone here is Catholic?
I used to.
You see? So I was born, like many people in Brazil, born and raised Catholic. In fact, 64% of the population in Brazil is Catholic. It's growing. 30% is Protestant, and everything is other. Muslim is really growing in Brazil, and the black religion identified hopefully we get to see in Salvador, Candomblé, It's a very small percentage, like 0.4. The thing is, before 1930s, candomblé was not allowed to be practiced. Okay, that's not the case anymore. But some people are still very, when the census came to their door, some people were not comfortable admitting to be followers of their religion because they knew their religion was and still is persecuted by parts of the government in Brazil. This is something very peculiar. I don't know if you know. This is the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary is the only one in the Catholic Church. It's the Mother of God. As she appears in different places, she's given different names. In Mexico, Virgen Guadalupe, and Portugal, Fatima, so forth and so on. So this is the version of the heads. When someone who's very Catholic and believes in a religion, they make a promise. If you have illness, for instance, in this case, their heads. Now, a lot of people have migraines and psychiatric problems. What you do is you make a promise to the saint that if you get healed, you're going to bring to the church a wax head, okay, in exchange for receiving the grace. Okay, so it can be an arm, it can be a wax house, it can be anything, key, it can be a car. So something that you really wanted to get it done in your life, you do it in exchange. You ask for the grace, and whatever, and when you receive it, you bring it to the church to thank for what you received. Okay, and over here to the right, you have the Black Madonna. That's a very interesting thing because often Brazilians, they do not embrace their blackness. But we have embraced a Black Madonna. According to history, in São Paulo, 200 years ago or more, there were three men that were escaping, a native, a black, and a Portuguese man that were helping them to escape. And they were out trying to make it, and they were very hungry. And at one point, they start to pray together. They were asking for food. So they threw the net in the river, and they pulled the net, and the net came with a lot of fish. But at the bottom of the net, there was an image of a saint, and the image was black. From that point on, Brazilians embraced that version as ours, as a black version. The historians say the image probably was white, like this one, but because she was in the bottom, it was in the bottom of the river for a long, long time, it became dark. But people don't care. Brazilians prefer to believe that we have a Black Madonna. Okay, so that is our Black Madonna. And there's another picture. So I'm waiting for the museums of the Black to be open. When we go in there, what I'd like to do, I want to go with you through the rooms, and I'll give you time to take pictures when I give the brief explanation. Okay, so we save time, and I'll make sure that you guys have your photos taken. Okay, and there's no more chat to see here open already. I'll be right back. Thank you.